I'm very excited to host Michael Pryor, procedural generation head at Wilder World. He's CDO of Design Morphine and he used to work as computational designer at Nike. So I'm I'm very excited for two reasons because I always look forward to Mike for he's always two steps ahead about the architecture profession, what's coming next, and always experimenting with new workflows and tools. So really wanted to know how he thinks and how he approaches things in life. So thanks a lot for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
Doing great. So
Yeah.
first, my first question is like how it how do you do time management? How does a day in your life look like? Because you are involved in so many things.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot of other parts and people and pieces involved in a lot of these things. Um, it's just something you kind of get used to when you're getting more comfortable and familiar with your like workflows and time management. And I think you find that if you kind of can get a routine down, um, you can work a lot more, efficiently, and being with the right team, so that you're not kind of like always, doing all nighters and this and that. Like I don't really do like all nighters or anything like that. It's um, just more about being efficient and kind of being direct, and just yeah, just understanding like what you're part of, and that it's not really like a solo show, like not like a one man show, Um, Design Morphine, for instance, it's me and Pavlina and Svetlina, um, all kind of doing what we need to do, having a good and clear communication and understanding of each other, um, and then all of the other amazing people that are part of Design Morphine as well. So many great tutors and especially like in the masters and whatnot. Um, which I mean, it really is. It's really them that kind of bring it to life. Like um, for me, I'm more kind of like in a kind of outside mentoring kind of overview kind of position there, where it's really like all the great tutors that get down into it, and then um, like at Wilder World, that's actually like so. There's me and Oleg Sirocco. We're both like heads of the procedural, so we kind of tackle that as a team, um, which is kind of interesting because we're in two different time zones. So it's like we're always on, kind of like 24 hours. Because as one stops, the other begins, kind of thing. And and again, it's also a team, right? Like it's a big team. There's many people involved, and again, it's really the biggest thing is about like um, yeah. I think the biggest thing to understand in any kind of environment like that is to understand that like there's not one like main person, or it's just not one person involved. Like if everyone's communicating, like communication is a huge part of it. Like everyone needs to be communicating and on the same page. No one can be like trying to I don't know, like kind of like steal the show, or be like the main attraction. It's kind of like doesn't really work that way because all of this stuff is too big for one person.
Yeah. But but how do you find your tribe, like people who are like-minded and think and are passionate about the same things you care about?
Well, yeah, I don't know. Like for design morphine, like we don't have like open applications or anything like that. Like I think a lot of people we interact with kind of gravitate towards our kind of bubble, and you kind of get a feel and understanding for people in that way when they're kind of like it's almost like the people of design morphine just like they just become a part of design morphine, kind of naturally, which is I think a really good way. I mean, it's not easy to do that, let's say, in like a hiring field, like an office, an architecture office, but they just kind of become a part of it. A lot of them like past colleagues or past students. Um, so it's really just a lot of like the most kind of natural relationships seem to work best. And yeah, like with me and Oleg, like we just started one day, like we kind of liked each other's aesthetics and what we were doing, and we just started like one day. We just were like, let's make some characters for fun, and we just started doing it for fun. And it wasn't for anything or like for Wilder World. We were just kind of like passing stuff back and forth and chatting a lot, and then yeah, and then we started doing it with Wilder World, and we were doing it kind of like as a collaboration. So again, like what we weren't actually employees at the time, kind
Hmm.
of just that also happened like very naturally. We were working with them probably for like 3 months, like collaboratively, and then it just kind of became like head of these positions. So like the moment was right, and also it was kind of like just like a natural progression into it. Um, I think that happens a lot. Like in both cases, it happens a lot. Like when you are really into the thing you're doing and care about like yeah, like for what like the intention was never like I need to get a job, right? It was always just like we really like this work and we're just gonna keep doing this work regardless of what happens with it or where it goes. It was just a lot of fun and learning and exploration.
Got it. And what I really admire about Design Morphin is like the type of workshops you do are like very forward thinking in the
Yeah.
workflows you introduce. So when you started or when you curate, like what are some gaps in current education system you found, or what are some missing areas which helped
Yeah.
you design and curate workshops?
Yeah. I mean, for us, like, in the beginning when we were doing like physical workshops and stuff, things were like very specific. I mean, they were still abstract, but they were always kind of very architecture geared.
Hmm.
And I think day by day we get more and more open to kind of like everything. And we don't really want to like tick the boxes. Like, we're not trying to say, like, okay, we need intro to Grasshopper courses. Now we need Maya courses. Now we need we're just like, this thing sounds interesting. So let's kind of let's be open to that, or people will approach us with something, um, like um, Andrew Kudlis. We were just talking with him, and we are like, he was like into crypto, and they're like, oh, let's do like it could be cool, like let's do like a crypto webinar. Like it doesn't have to be, you know, I think that the main thing about design morphing is we're not trying to be like a I guess subscription or like a kind of platform where it's like A to Z. We're just trying to be like out of order. Not
Hmm.
there's no
Organic.
specific order. It's just like whatever we and our team or whoever like finds interesting in that moment, because we're kind of see it as all very kind of valid and interesting things. Like yeah, like another one in the last kind of group of ones, we had one with Alice Laverell, who we did these kind of abstract, because she's an NFT artist, so we did these like abstract artworks with um, Cinema 4D, and you know there's like a bunch of stuff like that. And we did one with a lab about like things that you would have to design, when thinking of metaverse, which is like characters and spaces and whatnot. So I think that came a lot once we started thinking about our master's program, because our master's program, we were actually started thinking about it about like, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago. Um, and we thought like we didn't want to make, because kind of all this stuff sounds under the umbrella of like computational design. There's like computational design, and then like in that umbrella, there's those kind of methods of computational design, which is like was it procedural and parametric and generative, and we just thought like, and then there was my experience too, like right, and Pavlina's experience. Like we went into product design with the same skills, and now I'm in like metaverse with the same kind of similar skills. So we were always thinking about like, how can we do this in a way that's not so architecturally attached, because there's I think that the field of study of that and interest is just a lot bigger than architecture, and I've found personally that it's actually I personally think it's more relevant and more useful in fields that aren't architecture, such as product design, or at least more fun in a way, for me at least personally, um, formally and aesthetically, and kind of interesting shape wise. Whereas these things in architecture, yeah, you can do these interesting things, but rarely does it get made. If architecture is the profession, it doesn't. None of this stuff really really gets made, right? Like this crazy stuff that we all really like. There's a big disconnect between the stuff people are liking and the stuff that actually gets made, right? Unless you're in rare situations like Zaha or something, where even then, like the concept is also often like more radical than the reality, because of obviously cost and technology to make these things. Um, so yeah, so we kind of departed from architecture, and we used to have architecture like in our kind of description of us, and it's not there anymore. So yeah, just looking about like what all this is, and being very open to what can be achieved with it. um, I just like when there's so much. Just like one example, like in footwear, like how many people are using computer design and like and these kind of things in footwear now. It's just like so crazy, even to like the super commercial level, like all the stuff you see Yeezy doing with these crazy like you know Maya-esque forms and all this
Hmm.
stuff. So whether you find it ugly or not, it's a different thing, but like it's like happening whether you like it or not. So um, yeah, I just think that was like a big moment and turning point for us, is when we started designing the master's degree and said we don't want to make like a professional degree for masters for architecture. We want it to be for computational design.
And in your masters and like in other courses, like from what I see is you cover like various like skill set. Like one could be like a CG artist and they can make like procedural generated world
Yeah.
or artwork,
Mhm.
character design, sci-fi design, and
Yeah.
so if you can like share like what are the skills one would develop, like, or you're aiming the students will develop after this masters.
Yeah, I mean, the main goal is for students to develop the ability to think, just to think um, computationally and algorithmically, algorithmically for themselves. Um, and it's working. I mean, it's just interesting because all of our students, they're when I see what they're doing with the stuff outside of the projects, like it's interesting to see like what they gravitate towards. Like not everyone gravitates towards the same thing.
Hmm.
Um, some students are gravitating towards architecture afterwards. Some are like um, gravitating towards sculpting. I saw one today sculpting like super intense dragons. Like um, but the important point is to know like the skills, because the skills transverse to profession. um, if you can do something, yeah, the tool is a tool, right? Like you can, um, if you need to use it anywhere, you can use it, where. sees fit and where you're interested. Most importantly, um, funny enough, a lot of our students are being approached by metaverse companies, and a lot of them are working in metaverse companies now because of the masters and the work from the masters. Um, and that's just interesting to me because, like, for also for me at Wilder World, because it's a metaverse, there's so much to do, and I'm with Oleg and the team there, like working on so many different things. It's like one day I'm working on land, and the next day buildings, the next day characters, and then vehicles, and then like, so it's really cool to have that kind of excitement in a job where you know week by week and even sometimes day by day, like the medium is completely different, but because you have that kind of skill set, it's you can attack it from like an interesting point of view. um, and when you know these kind of computational tools, you become think of pretty valuable asset. um, so it's funny, like the one of the Wilders there, when he introduced me and Oleg the other day in a meeting, he said that we're each of us is like equal to 1,000 people because we're me and him are doing a lot of mass procedural stuff with Houdini. Um, so it's just kind of funny that you know companies are also thinking that way, or at least the open-minded ones. They see the benefit that, like, one person, even one person that knows these tools well, can be efficient as hundreds or many um, people that only know, let's say, kind of manual techniques or less advanced kind of things. So um, it's that's kind of like that was like an interesting thing for me, like to be thought of that way, that you're kind of thought as many, quantified as many people.
Yeah, and like it's algorithmic, so you can scale it pretty well, and like you can like
Yeah.
procedurally like apply the same logic to much more different kind of assets. And to your
Mhm.
point, and now like I'm very curious. So you mentioned a lot of your students are like being hired by like or collaborating with metaverse companies.
Mhm.
So one question I have is, what are the skills architects need to acquire to become a metaverse architect? Like tools, algorithms, like because there's a big gap in that definition.
Yes. Well, yeah. So for me, it's all I'm using now is Houdini and Unreal Engine. That's definitely Unreal Engine, because that's what most things are being made in. There's no, I mean,
So Unreal for character, like if you can specify, like
Unreal for everything, like the world, like it all happens in the end of the day in Unreal, and um, that's why Houdini is really good, because it works inside Unreal also. So, um, but everything is mesh based. I mean, there's not the metaverse doesn't have really NURBS, right? So um, it's not really necessary, and um, just yeah. I mean, I would just, I mean, you could use it. I use it sometimes, like Rhino Grasshopper, but it's not necessarily the right tool for like metaverse creation, because it just, like, mesh wise, and the amount of things and the size of things you need, it just computationally, like, isn't there like other tools are, like Houdini, that can handle, like, you know multiple millions of polygons with no problem. And then there's Unreal 5, which has like Nanite, which can handle infinite amounts of polygons with no problem. So um, yeah, you see a lot of, like, and that's why we're doing a lot of, like, cinema webinars these days, because cinema is a big one. Like, in the NFT space in general, like Cinema 4D is a big tool. Like, people is using Cinema, and like all these big artists, NFT artists, are using Cinema. Um, Maya, of course, as always, Maya. There's a lot of Blender too, because it's it's free, so there's that, that aspect of it. But for me personally, me and Oleg, we're using Houdini and Unreal Engine for the most part. I use Grasshopper sometimes, but more for like internal stuff, like
Mhm.
just getting like the data across to other team members. Because Grasshopper makes nice, you know, Grasshopper is a good tool for like graphical information, maps and these kind of things, and data sets like to convey information, diagrams. So I'm using it for that, like internal, but for the actual work, it's those software, mesh based software.
So if I were from your answer, if I were to guess like how one can develop and translate those skills is if someone knows a procedural uh, generation algorithm for land creation or building creation, they can either deploy it in Houdini or Unreal, get those assets, and then if you want to have like a detailed texture and modification, either they can directly model it in Blender or import it in Unreal, or they can modify in Unreal directly.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways to do it. Like again, I can't speak for every.
Yeah,
The metaverse is so new, and I'm only working at, you know, the one I'm working at is the one I know. But it's, I mean, as far as I know, while the world is one of the only ones like looking at the metaverse from like a high graphic AAA point of view, not like a voxel point of view. Um, and they're like in the, always in like the top five, like upcoming, like they're in Forbes and Time magazine along with the others. Like the other ones are what, like Sandbox, Decentraland, these ones, but they're not like those ones are. They're not looking at it from like a high graphic point of view. Um, but yeah, you need Unreal Engine to kind of like everything. In the end of the day, everything needs to go there. But everyone kind of use, like, there's no restriction on what people use. It's just that people tend to use more, like, again, like Cinema, Blender, Maya, these kind of things. But at the end of the day, it all needs to make its way optimized and into Unreal Engine.
yeah. And yeah, it also like depends on like what kind of role that metaverse architect is. Like you are at the platform level, so you get to create the world and do it. Like if people are buying parcel, they might be just designing a building on that parcel, and maybe
Yeah,
more on the interior side, you are more on the exterior side and like big scale and world. So,
yeah, yeah. There's that level too of like, what is the person that buys things doing? Um, Whereas I'm on the end of the kind of creation of the world there, with a lot of other people, very very talented and skilled people, who all know what they're doing and how to do what they're doing, and just so many tools involved. And that's another thing too, like, about the masters that I'm kind of always telling our students, because, like, for instance, we teach C sharp as well, and I'm always like, don't like there's just some things you can't expect to master in a month and a half.
mhm,
And C sharp is definitely one of those things. Um, but the point of the point of like these kind of master's degree is like, um, you're not going to be the best coder in that time in any degree program, unless you're in a degree program that's like 10 or more years, which isn't really many. I don't think any exist like that except for like maybe PhDs. Um, but then in a PhD, you're kind of on your own. You're not really being taught so much in a PhD. Um, but it's important to understand like what's going on around you, because also, you know, you learn all these things in the master's degree. Like in our master, you learn so many things. Like people learn they learn so much like stuff, and they're like almost all of them knew nothing like when they started, and now if you see them like on Instagram, I mean, they're just all doing such crazy things. I mean, it's kind of absurd like to be, you know, hired, for some of them hired in like pretty good like positions in some of these companies, these like startup metaverse companies, like, and they haven't even graduated yet, you know, like that's kind of like how accelerated their learning is there. um and but you know, it's important that like after a degree, you know, even when I'm in school, like you get your interest and then that's where you focus. Like computational design, it means so many things and there's so many parts of it. And you know, if you don't like coding, you don't need to be the computational designer that's a coder, you know. Like I honestly don't even code that much in my work, you know, like because again, I'm using like Houdini and these kind of things. um, but you need to understand like what's going on around you and like what other people do. Like so like if you take the masters and like you're like, you know, your favorite thing ever is C sharp, then that might, you might become, you know, the computational designer who's a coder, you know, like, or um, there's just so many different aspects of it. But it's important to kind of at least understand or have seen code before, or you know, to understand what the people you're working with like are doing to some level, you know. Again, just makes the communication better. Like communication is just like so important in these kind of big projects, you know, where there's just so many people involved, you know.
I see. And do you think architects or any creators who want to transition into metaverse architect should learn about gaming design, game logic, interaction, like how to
It
make
only
that scene?
depends. It only depends if like that's what your interest is. Like again, like you don't, if you're working on something like that, you're not gonna be doing it all. And you should have some idea, but you don't need to know. Like I don't know. I can't say I know much at all about level design, you know,
Hmm.
for a game, but that's why I work with level designers, you know. So it's like, you know, there's different people have different professions, and so I would always say like you should know really well the thing you want to do, and you should have just at least an idea of like what the other parts that need to happen like are, and what these people do, you know. And what their role is too. Like understanding your role is an important part of working in these kind of teams, to not kind of overstep, and to also be accepting of people's information and critique. Kind of have to put egos aside and understand that you don't know everything, and they don't know everything, and that's why you're both there to kind of, both or multiple there to figure it out together, you know. So if I do something and, you know, a level designer is like, hey, this needs to be like this, doesn't really work, you know, I'm going to listen to them because I don't, you know, they know level design, you know, from, you know,
Hmm.
I don't know level design. And level design is different than designing a space. There's certain things that need to happen. You have to think about things like how do things load in and out of a scene, you know, how much things can you have in a scene, you know, like how much of the scene can you see, you know, like these kind of things are, they're more than, they're the like technical things and behind the scene things. They're more than just like designing a space, right? Like so, you know, in like in past games, like, you know, like when things were a bit slower, like I don't know, probably like PlayStation or something, you know, they used to make levels purposely like windy, so that by the time the character got through these windy things, the thing that was after had time to load. So it was kind of a trick, because if you can just see everything at once, you can't,
Hmm.
you know, load all of that stuff, right? So these are the kind of level design things. So that's just one thing. And then there's, you know, people that deal with material optimization and then mesh optimism, all these kind of things. Like there's just all these things kind of need to come together, and everyone just has to coordinate and listen to each other's professional kind of advice.
I, so it's more kind of assets creation space we can contribute
Yeah.
apart from the whole big but
Hmm.
like we are competing that, like for example architects will be competing with like game designers, CG artists for the same asset creation, and you are teaching in your workshops and masters the same workflows which all these other
Yeah.
professions are also using. So
Well, I think what architects have that benefit is that um, the metaverse is a bit different than a video game where um, a building in a metaverse um, needs to be understood from an architectural point because it's not like a building in a video game where you just go in and there's maybe like certain parts you can go in and it's very guided. Even in things like when you go into like a house, like, kind of guided onto what you can see and where you can go. But if it's a metaverse, owns or an apartment, right? Like this apartment things that are occupiable. So like I think architects play a big role in that aspect where I think video game designers are more about the kind of aesthetic and like specific route and things. So um, that's just kind of a difference I see there. Um, yeah, I mean it's just a different look and take on it. But then there's also the design thing too. Like some architects have very strong design potential, and like so you might want those people on your team if that's what you're looking for, like these kind of things, these kind of design things. Yeah.
I see. Well, what are some biasness we bring in this s- metaverse asset creation, which might hinder instead of benefit? Like, for example, we don't need to comply with gravity, but if
Yeah.
make same gravity buildings there, like, are we like, using metaverse for the best potential of the metaverse?
Yeah, I think you don't need like things don't need to be real, which I think is cool because it can make almost like the connection between um, like academic and practice closer, um, especially more abstract design schools. Um, so that's I think that's really cool. I think things in the metaverse should be um, they should be there's kind of like a line. It should things should be abstract and new, but also recognizable. Like I feel like things shouldn't be so far abstract that it's kind of like you're just in this mess of light and colors and geometry, and it kind of because even when you do something like that, then everything looks kind of monotonous and the same everywhere. It's just like sensory overload of
Mhm.
random stuff and lights. It's like I think at Wilder, at least for us, it's just like a big thing was like things should look recognizable, but feel not from the real world, right? So like again, like you said, floating, like that's just like an easy example, right? Like you know, could something looks like a building, but actually it's floating and pieces are kind of floating and things are different and um, I think that's to me is what's like the most interesting, like that line between how abstract can you go that people still understand like okay that's a building because also have to understand that the people that are going to be using these things aren't like they're not like designers and also I think we all like this crazy way abstract stuff but not many people like that to be honest like outside of our
Mhm.
circle like there's a reason why everyone likes like Apple and stuff like that, right? Like how simple and clean and pure. Um, and so, yeah, again, like just trying to find that line in things like how how can you be abstract, but people can still understand what's going on. Like if you wanted to make, I don't know, a motorcycle, like how you don't want to actually make a motorcycle. It's like how far can you push it that at least someone would still say it's a motorcycle and they wouldn't confuse it with a dog or something, so there's got to be some kind of resemblance there of what it's meant to be.
I see. So, like, yeah, I could find a lot more resemblance from product design. Like, how can you design product which stands out but also simple and easy and recognizable? So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it doesn't need to be simple and easy. It's just that, like, you know it's hard to say in words, but there are things that are just like too abstract and too amorphous that
Hmm.
it could be too many things. Like it's not really quantifiable as like what is this thing. So um and if that happens, I mean that even that is like probably okay here and there, but if it's like that everywhere all the time, then that in itself also becomes boring because it's just the same randomness everywhere. Like it's the same noise everywhere. Like there
Yeah.
needs to be kind of gradients and different levels of things and to experience.
So maybe some lesson from like human computer interaction where like how psychology, like how much sensory
Yeah.
overload one should give, like those
Yeah.
lessons should be
Well, if
transferred.
you were doing like an abstract thing, it's more powerful in the setting of a bunch of non-abstract things than in the setting of all abstract things, right? So that's if you put it in a setting of all things like it becomes like less interesting and less important. So
Hmm. I'm curious to know like what were like some pivotal moments. So two major decisions. I'm curious like your transition into like computational design at Nike, like total changing the field, and now into Web3. Like what were things like okay, I'm moving for sure.
yeah, I mean, well, the I just found the work in in like physical architecture, like real world architecture. I just um, personally found like the work in this the stuff I was interested in, computational design. Like I just found it like boring. I don't know. To me, I just found it boring. Like, but that's not that's just me again, right? Like we all have different likes and dislikes. So I think the takeaway isn't that architecture is boring because I think it's not boring, but it was boring for me in my interests of what I wanted to do. I mean, I still like architecture, but you know, other people like other things. So the takeaway for me is that to understand what you like and to be happy doing what you like doing and make sure that you have a medium to express that. And I just felt like real world architecture wasn't the right medium for me to express my interests. Um, because it's a lot of, I think in architecture, concept design is very, the bulk of it, aside from like fancy looking facades and curvy shapes, like a majority of computational design in architecture is a lot of like behind the scenes stuff, technical stuff, databasing, categorizing, documenting, um, layouts, efficiency, these kind of things, but not necessarily aesthetics. Um, the aesthetics in architecture, in computational, I mean, usually boils down to like a facade or a facade
Hmm.
pattern. It's like kind of the most you can really do with it. um, unless you're in like a rare few offices, and even then, it's likely not going to be you that gets to do it. Like many people above you, um, and and product design. I was thinking about it for a while, not necessarily footwear, but it just seemed like a nice kind of avenue to explore form and shape and these kind of things, because at a product scale, you can manufacture and test things without spending you know $1 billion for a building. Um, and yeah, and then I don't know, that Nike just like, they reached out to me, honestly, like at a weird, at like a it was just kind of like by random. I mean, but I was thinking about it, and then so I went there, and then and I really liked Nike. I still do. I mean, it was such a fun job. Um, but the whole like Web3, I was really interested in that, and like all Metaverse stuff, and um, I felt like even more like, for me, without the restriction of physical manufacturing, I can truly like explore my personal interests. So again, like, it's I'm not like advocating for one versus the other. Like, you need to do this, you can't do this. Just super important for anyone to understand their interests, and if they're happy doing what they're doing, right? I think it wasn't it like Steve Jobs who was saying, like, he was asking himself every day in the mirror, if he's
Today.
happy if he's happy what he's doing today, and if it was too many days in a row that he wasn't happy, he would quit no matter what, because right, like, you have one life, and in his case, he knew
Mhm.
he had cancer. So, what's the point of staying in something you're not happy with? So that important thing, that's been a big driver for, because it was hard for me at, I mean, probably 2 years or maybe even a year before Nike. I couldn't conceive, like, oh, leaving architecture. Like, what was the point of all that degree? And it was difficult. But then once I did it, I realized, like, it's actually a much like happier way to live. Like, if you just do the things that make you happy, rather than worrying about what you know you think you're like, what, I don't know, what maybe people or something think you're supposed to be. I think
So
it's a
you
lot
had
more
midlife crisis
interesting.
too
I wouldn't say midlife crisis, but it was, at first it was like unconceivable to leave, because it's like everyone, like your family thinks like, you're an architect, and then like you went to school for, you know most people go to school for at least 5 years,
Mhm.
8 years, whatever, to do this thing, and then just to like kind of, but then you realize you're not really tossing it away. You're just kind of taking the skills to a different place, and a different life. But yeah, I mean, I definitely like life. Life has improved since, like, kind of strongly following what I'm interested in, without being like kind of too worried about it, in that sense. Um, and also understanding that, like, you could always go back if you wanted to, right? Like, there's not, it's
Yep.
not really permanent. Um, the other biggest thing, obvious biggest thing, which I don't get too much into, but is like the financial aspects of it, financial and like work life balance. Um,
Mhm.
you know, like I was saying, like, I don't do overnighters. I don't do weekends. I don't do any of this stuff. So, um, and
You,
haven't
you can
since.
go to Hawaii and enjoy the
Yeah,
vacation.
yeah, and haven't since Nike. I mean, Nike was very strict. You work only till 5 p.m. Like, they're very strict about it. Weekends, nothing. You'll never get an email on a weekend or anything like that. It's that. And I'll honestly say, where I was working at Trahan before, um, they were they were uh, yeah, they were pretty good with that too. Also, like, we I worked there for what, like, 2 years. I probably did like one all nighter. Barely ever stayed late. They were pretty good with that as well. Um, but then we had, in the same building as OMA, New York, and I'd be going home at like 5, 6 p.m. and those guys were like just always there.
Uh,
So, um, you know, I think it also, yeah, it definitely made me learn that like those kind of situations are very unproductive. You know, I mean, I do stay up late sometimes, but it's not, it's not just for work. Um, or if I'm really interested in it, but no one's kind of like forcing me to do that. Um, yeah, you're just so much more efficient when you're well rested.
mhm,
With 10 hours or 8 hours of work well rested is like more efficient than like 24 hours of not rested work.
mhm.
So,
Yeah, definitely. Like I feel sometimes like there's like this, I don't know, stereotype or like saying where, okay, architects, you're meant to do creative, you're impacting so much lives. If you
yeah,
change field, you might not be able to create such an impact, or you might not
yeah.
get creative freedom. But like
Mhm.
people overthink before making that decision. I think like if they just try it, I think there's a whole different experience.
Yeah, yeah, that's something too. Like the overthinking thing. Like, I think if you just, I don't think that I overthink. At least I hope I don't. I just kind of like do until it works, until it's solved. Like just kind of just keep doing and doing, and um, um, yeah, and also like it's, I don't know, who wants to spend their like 20s and 30s in an office like the whole time. I don't know. Not I don't. I'd rather go like to Hawaii and stuff, right? Or wherever
Yeah.
you're gonna go, like, or whatever you're gonna do, or like just have like a normal life. It's like, and I'm always thinking about like that show, How I Met Your Mother, and it's like if that show was realistic, the main character would never even be in the show because he would just be in an office all the time. I think he was actually at work like two times in that entire show. Um,
Nice. So if I were to like summarize from what I took, like, so you you get creative freedom in architecture with computational algorithm at facade level, but there's a limitation to that. Then in product design in Nike, it's faster,
yeah.
low cost, and then
Well,
more
there's
creative.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things, and I wouldn't say not creative because there's a lot of creative things. But I think in architecture, it's more about like I think it's more about creative solutions, and that makes some people's part of their brain light up in the kind of happiness zone. But for me, not. It wasn't. I mean, it's always satisfying when you solve something, right? But I really um, like the formalism of design, right? All the kind of stuff I'm always doing, and that's why I get along like design wise and work wise with Oleg so much because I feel like he's very similar. Um, and but no, I think in architecture it's creative, but like in a different way. It's creative in a problem solving way. Um, but a lot of those problems are like very technical things. That's sort of like they're more. I would say even more on like the BIM side. I mean, that's
Mhm.
BIM is kind of like the what kind of computational design is in architecture, like for the most part, in physical real world office architecture, it's not really so much an aesthetic thing as it is like an efficiency kind of thing.
Do you speculate architecture firms doing their own NFT collection or metaverse scope or services?
I'm sure they are. I think some are already. I just would say, when I see that, I would just think like, if you're going to be like, if you're, X architecture office and you're offering your building to a metaverse, I would just hope that they're thinking differently, like like I don't think anyone, or at least me, like why would I want to see the same building in real life also in a meta, like the point of metaverse is to see things I can't see in real life. Otherwise, I'll just go to it in real life, right? Like because I mean, graphically, real life is better right now, still, right? And probably will be for our lifetime. Um, so uh, I would just hope that it's not like one to one. Like there's
Mhm.
some metaverse twist on it. Like, okay, you have an aesthetic, you have a style, you have an understanding about space, but what's like your meta twist on it? That's not just like, oh, here's a model we did in real life, and we're just going to now import it into Unreal Engine. Like I feel like it could be, if it's not more interesting than that, then I think it's like missed opportunity to kind of be more creative, and explore all the things that you couldn't do in real life that you wished you could do, and I don't know, they got turned down for finances or gravity or money, client, whatever.
Yeah, especially when I think about like design competitions where there are like some designs that couldn't be realized.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, like all that crazy stuff you see in a Volo, like that's
Mhm.
that and more. Like these are the kind of things that can find, I think, like a home now somewhere in the metaverse. Um, and it doesn't need to be an afterthought anymore. Like, well, we can't build it. At least we can put it here. Like, you can strictly think about the metaverse, and what is the metaverse. But metaverse is also like a thing that's like it's thrown around so much, but there's only a few people actually doing like metaverse. Like it's easy for a company to say, okay, we're making a metaverse, and then but there's only a few like actually you know doing it, because it takes a lot. It takes a lot of
Mhm.
finances, a big team, a big technical understanding and limitation of technology of your consumers, and so it's you know I see a new thing that's called a metaverse like every day, many of them, but they'll likely not anything happen with it, or like, or the term is just used loosely, like what is
Yeah.
kind of metaverse. But I think we all kind of understand what we want a metaverse to be, which is like what, like Ready Player One, or Free Guy, these kind of things. Like this is what we're kind of understanding as that.
I'm just thinking if architects start bringing their own model, like they bring all the architecture styles with it. Do you think that there would be like a metaverse architecture style or something?
There could be. Maybe it'll be floating. Maybe everything will just be floating. Maybe that's the metaverse architect style. I don't know. Um, but I also think it's interesting, like for metaverse, like to grow like a city grows. Like I think if you're planning like aesthetically a whole city in one style, it's like automatically the wrong move. Like
Mhm.
because if you think of any city you've ever been to, they're not like, everything is different, and that's what makes it unique. And even when you go to like different zones, like Chinatowns and this and that, it's like you understand it based on like the culture and what's going on there. So I think it's more interesting when things happen like organically and neighborhood wise, and um, from many different people, and that's kind of what makes a city interesting. Again, it goes down to like, if something's cool, but it's the same cool everywhere, then it's just like kind of boring.
I see. I have a rapid fire question to wrap up the
Sure,
interview, and you'll have a
sure.
10 less than 10 seconds and gotta keep it brief. So,
Okay.
which cities are in your travel bucket list?
Which cities are in my travel bucket list? That's a hard one. I mean, I want to I want to go like so many places everywhere. I mean, I don't know. a lot of Europe I want to go to, like more. I've been to a lot. I mean, I've been to a lot of Europe, but there's still a lot of places I haven't been able to go. Um, Oddly, I want to see like some of the really cold places that no one wants to go to, just because they're so like I feel like it'd be really cool to go to like Antarctica or something, but like not for a long time, but just to like because how many people do you know that say they have seen the Antarctica or been there, right? But like or like some like really remote places in like Alaska and stuff where they have like the lights and the northern lights and all this stuff. So, but I don't know how long I'd want to stay there. um, yeah, there's just so many places. I like islands a lot. Uh, Islands are a lot of fun. Like I am here now. Uh, yeah, I have no objection to where I want to go. I'll check it. I'll check it all out. Believe it or
Are
not,
you
I
like a
haven't actually been so many places in the US. I've only been like West and East Coast. And it's not much of the middle.
nice. Are you like a digital nomad? Do you like that life?
Uh, I don't know. It's hard because I need my like even now I'm with a laptop and I feel
You
like kind
need
of naked
multiple screen.
without my computer, like it feels like very weird, like to not just have the computer. So um that's the thing. I know like Oleg, he's got his desktop like breaks down into a suitcase and then he takes the whole desktop with it, which
That's cool.
seems like a nice idea, yeah. Because the laptops, like for this kind of stuff, like the laptops are just it's hard to work on such a tiny screen when Houdini alone like is really hard to use on one small screen. Um, and then you're using Unreal with it, and it's it's like
Kind of
at
crazy.
home I just have one of these huge curved screens, because I don't like the seam of like the multiple monitors, but I want to have many things open. So yeah,
Nice. Dang, we got deviated from rapid fire. Okay, I'm gonna keep it brief now.
it's
So,
okay.
your favorite movie
My favorite movie, I have a few. Definitely up there is The Matrix for sure. Always has been the original. I think seeing the original one when I was a kid. First time I saw it was for my grandfather, and I was used to watch it like every time I was over there. I'd probably seen Reverse Matrix at least 200, 300 times. It was
was
like the only thing me and my brother were just watching this movie like all day because it was also like when it came out, my grandfather, he was kind of first one that I knew to have like a big TV, and that's when like surround sound systems just came out.
Mhm.
So he had like surround sound, and it was just like always like crazy experience. Yeah. So if I had to pick one top, that would be it. But I like others like at the top too, like Fight Club. I like a lot. This movie. Um, yeah, there's a bunch of them. Like Pulp Fiction, I like Pulp Fiction a lot. Um, yeah, something like those.
Got it. Uh, any book which made a big impact in your life?
What? To be honest, I don't read many books. It's just not something I ever did so much. So I can't say that there's any really that has made much of an impact in my life. I was always more like movies and TV shows kind of person. Internet, movie, TVs. Yeah,
I see. Uh,
yeah. But people
you
ask me all the time, like, do I have any books to recommend even for like competitions? I don't even know what's exist for. I just use the internet for everything, like in that sense.
got it. And man, I forgot the next question I was asking. But is there any thing you wish you would have done differently
In terms of like just overall in general.
in life? I'll keep it open ended.
um I think if I had like like foresight into like where I'll end up, I probably would have spent less money in a college, especially dorming.
Do you think like the future is like fully online education and no college?
I don't know. I don't think fully online. I think there's a lot of things you can't learn online, like I don't know how to perform surgery, things like this. Like there's a lot of stuff you can't learn online. In terms of the stuff we're doing, I think online is like I don't think you need anything else. I mean, we are doing it pretty efficiently with online. I mean, um, students are learning that they're happy, we're happy, they're getting hired, they're doing awesome stuff that they weren't able to do, and like what more can you ask for than that? Um, and you can see our interviews. The Masters Open Day on our website. You can hear from them, and they're all very excited and very happy, and uh, they're enjoying it. And um, yeah, I mean that's what's important to me is like that they're happy with what they're doing and I mean we try to also like we were pretty actively try to help them find jobs or guide them towards jobs or getting hired. And we do that, like it's also like in our that's another thing about our masters in our reviews. We almost never have architect, like we're always um, we have architects, but also a lot of people like the last one we had like what do you call like lead designers from different industries. We try to get people as our critics who are in hiring positions, because
Mhm.
a big goal for us is not just to teach our students and then like kind of leave them out there, but to teach them useful things and to get them like hired, you know. Um, so I can't. Oh yeah, so we had like lead designer of Rolls Royce. Um, we had like head of big fashion names like Off White and these kind of things, and
Whoa.
um, so we're always, and then we had like that's why a lot of them at Metaverse because we had a lot of like the heads of like Metaverses there, and so we're always looking at different industries and to get these people exposure not just to other like we never have really critics that are just other educators. We want people from an outside perspective, but also with the power to grant you know jobs to people actually out there doing the stuff.
That's incredible because like as you pointed earlier, like educating students is one thing. Like when once they are capable, if they can't apply those learnings to real life project or work, like you're like not closing the loop. So I think through
Yeah,
your masters and this recruitment, like it's you have like very well structured the whole cycle.
yeah, yeah. It was always a goal for us, and even we'll have more sessions with them on like um, getting hired and helping them get hired. Like so now we're asking them because they have a break right now. And then current students will start robotics lab next. Well, they're building like little robotics. They had to order these kits for their home, and then
Uh,
so they build these little robots. But then also in their break, we told them to come up with like an idea of what they want to do afterwards and lists of places they want to work, so we can try to see how to get them if we can't already, like how we can get them there, like who do we need to contact on our end, like because we have no problem like doing that, like to try to get them there, which I
mhm.
think you don't find at a lot of universities to
Yeah.
want to get their people like hired, you know.
First of all, there's a big gap on what the profession need and what they teach. So
Yeah, 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 yeah. exactly. And the computational design is so desired in the other places. It's so like wanted everywhere else, and actually treated as like a higher niche position, specialist. I feel like in architecture, it's treated like just the same as everything else, or maybe even worse. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's like
Like less
overhead.
important, like um yeah, but other places there it's treated like you know a high advanced skill position.
Yes. Who's your role model?
My role model, uh I don't know. I don't know if I there's there's not there's not someone I specifically think of like that I'm kind of going after. I don't know. I don't know. I just like stuff and just try and do it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't really think in the way of like role models, but that's not to say that there aren't any. I mean, there's so many great inspirational people in the world, but that it's just not something I spend a lot of time thinking about.
Yeah. I have this last question, and this might put you on the spot. So, if you were to design a metaverse studio and have a team of five instructors to teach five topics, who would they be, and what would be those topics?
With 5 instructors to teach 5 topics.
Yeah, like yeah. So,
Uh, I don't know. I mean, it would be. I feel like the instructors we have. I mean, if you look at the master degree for design morphine, it's basically without saying it or without even knowing it, kind of became a metaverse master's degree, right? Like you're making, but we didn't think about this when we designed it this way. It's just something I thought about after the fact, especially once working at Wilder, right? We're making a character and then a space for that character and then a neighborhood for that character and then vehicle and transit systems for that character and then a world for that character, right? And then you're also doing things like VR and all these stuff, VR and Unreal. So I feel like we have I would I think I would pick our team we have already, um, that you can see online. I feel, and we have 5 chapters, but each chapter is two, so that's 10 people. So I went a little bit outside the bounds, but they're pretty solid. I think they did really good. I think they did a really good job, at and working all together too, because it's not an easy thing to do because the entire degree is connected from start to finish. So where one chapter leaves off, the next tutors have to kind of pick up the ideas from there, but in their topic. So um, not an easy thing to do to get so many people to coordinate, and but they're all great. So yeah, I think they did it pretty well. I don't know who else I would pick for something like that.
nice. And are there any ideas which you wish you could implement if you had more time and resources?
In like in my work.
Anywhere, Wilder World, Design Morphin, a new plugin in Grasshopper.
Yeah, I mean, if I had time, I mean, there's a lot of stuff I still want to do with like pufferfish and all that stuff. Um, if I had more time, um, and I have to think about grasshopper too now. But yeah, I think I would like to get some of those things into Houdini. I think if I had time, would be good. Because I got so used to them, and then sometimes I'm looking for them, and they're like a bit different. Things are different there, and so like, kind of, how does that interpret into another software? Could be interesting to see how those tools would how would they even be in another software.
So, pufferfish in either Houdini plugin or Unreal plugin.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, something like that could be cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Uh, is there anything which we didn't cover in this interview you would like to share?
No, I think we covered a lot. Yeah, I think just the big thing is uh, everything is so new right now, and I think no one as a designer should be afraid to experiment and try these things. Nothing is permanent, so like here, and yeah, I think, and people shouldn't stay stuck in things they don't find like satisfaction in their daily life with. Because if you're not happy for, it's probably not going to get better unless you change something.
You have to take action.
Yeah, otherwise it's just going to stay the same. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Great. Thanks a lot, Mike. Like
Thank you
it
so
was
much.
great hosting you.
Thank you. Look forward to it, and yeah, whenever next time or something.
For sure. I might look if you're launching your own NFT collection. I'll keep an eye.
I don't know if I will be. I don't really have so much time for that. But definitely with Wilder World with our robots there with Oleg. So
Yeah,
yeah,
great.
cool.
See you.
Thank you.
Have,
Thank you
have
so
a
much. See you.